The bandwidth for this episode of the AR-15 podcast is sponsored by the Firearms Radio Network. FirearmsRadio.tv.
Welcome to episode number 80 of the AR-15 podcast. I'm your host, Reed Snyder, and with me today is my co-host, Anthony Hardy. This is the podcast about your favorite black rifle. This show is for you, whether you're building your first AR or you've been building ARs for years. There's something we can all do to take our black rifle to the next level. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
All right.
Some of our listeners have been writing in about our sound quality because we are trying to improve the quality of our show, adding a little technology that until recently was above my pay grade, but apparently it's now a requirement in order to continue to deliver good listening quality to you. So please bear with us, but we do want you to write in and let us know how we're doing so that we can continue to improve. We've told Anthony no more Dagwood sandwiches during the podcast. He is now officially on a diet.
Yeah, I'll try not to eat on the podcast anymore. I don't think I've ever done that, but yeah, I did listen to last week, the last episode that I was able to be on, and my audio was pretty doggone awful, guys. I apologize. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, I'm going to make sure I'm muted when I'm not actively speaking this time.
All right. Well, so let's start off by letting you know that it is Brownells that helps make this show possible. So we want you to remember that Brownells is there for you anytime you make a mistake, like when Jake shoots a takedown pin to tent across his avocado green linoleum flooring and it skids under the cabinets. Because, you know, Jake's got a whole bunch of little ones, and they're not really good with that fine motor skill stuff. So they have to get his old, decrepit self down there on the floor trying to find those pins.
Yeah, that's always an interesting task, I'm sure.
Well, we want to let you know that we are continuing to assemble the Brownells-sponsored AR-15. And if you haven't been listening to the show, we're having a giveaway. We're giving away an AR-15 that is sponsored by Brownells, the likes of which I am sure you have never seen. It is such a beautiful piece of equipment and hardware. We're real excited to just get out there and get it built. So we will go into the details of our drawing later, but right now I want to show you how the rifle has come along. For all of our listeners who have access to a computer and Google, YouTube has a video of this podcast, so you can take a look at the rifle that I am displaying in front of our video for you. It is the lower receiver, and right now it is in its mostly final stage of assembly. I still have a few accessories I am going to try to finagle for you to add to the rifle, so just keep in mind that we will be making a few improvements before it's all said and done. This week we assembled the Magpul MOE rifle stock, and so one of the things that we decided on this build was that we were not going to go with a collapsible 16-inch carbine style rifle, that we were going to go with a full-length 20-inch rifle stock form AR-15. So this stock was just an absolute breeze to install. And I think, as we mentioned last week, right here, as the stock mates to the receiver, there is an orienting knob that fits in the milled out portion of the lower receiver that prevents the stock from rotating on the buffer tube extension, or the receiver extension. So it's really a nice piece of engineering. It's obviously the way the rifle was originally engineered, rather than the collapsible stock, which I think was basically just the development of modernization. So, get a chance. If you get a chance, please come over to the YouTube video. Take a look at the rifle. It's an absolute dream. And I think really at this point, our lower receiver component of the rifle is completely assembled.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
So we've got a couple of weeks, and we're going to spend the next couple of weeks filming our assembly component for the website. We're not going to publish any of the films until everything is put together, but we are going to be on a little hiatus while we get some work done on the barrel. We're having it threaded so that we can use our compensator, and certainly it is going to be an absolutely wonderful example of a barrel, it being a Colt competition barrel. So we're real excited about that. So next week will be kind of a little slow on the build components, so bear with us, but we're still trucking along. That brings me to the tip of the week, and I'm sure many of you have fiddled with your collapsible stock, but I just wanted to remind you that on many of the collapsible stocks there is an easy way to take that bad boy off. Now, we all know the pin, which is spring-loaded, which settles into one of the 5 or 6, or if it's a Voltor stock, a 7 position receiver extension for the collapsing stock. Now, when a lot of people try to take the stock off of the receiver extension, they pull on that pin, and that is the long way, the hard way of getting that stock off. If you'll basically reach to the rear of that mechanism, and instead of pulling on the pin, pull on the component of the release that you're going to squeeze in the opposite direction, it'll pull that pin clear out so that you can easily slide the entire stock assembly off of your receiver extension. So that may not sound as simple as I've thought I made it, but certainly if you take a close look at it, I think it'll become clear. For all of the rest of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, I'm sorry for filling up a little bit of dead air with something that you already knew. So.
Yeah, so Reed, when I go and practice taking my stock off and putting it back on, I'll give you a call.
All right. I encourage you to do so. That way I can laugh at you for not understanding me.
All right, then.
So, I guess that leads us to the topic of tonight's show. One of the things that I've really begun to get a sense as I shop for parts, as I go to the places I routinely go to see what the firearms industry is doing, it's changing. It's changing from what we have come to expect over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 years, and I think it's really kind of settling into a new norm. So I kind of wanted to talk about my thoughts and Anthony's thoughts about where that's headed, because I think that the state of ARs in the firearms industry is creating some opportunities for a lot of you guys that weren't here a year ago or 2 years ago, certainly not 6 years ago. So let's talk about that in terms of what the state of the AR industry is right now. So I think anybody who has been looking for a fully assembled AR-15 has noticed that prices are beginning to drop. So let's talk about kind of some common mainstays. And I don't want you to think that this is an exclusive list, but I think what you'll find here is some rifles that historically have kind of been on the leading edge of setting the prices of what ARs are, except for one who is a new entry this year, but still at their price point, it's well within what we would expect for prices of rifles that are coming down to more reasonable levels for most any consumer. So start off with the Colt LE6920, which I think is kind of a very common Colt version of the AR that you're going to find in a lot of retailers' inventories, and I think that is pretty readily available.
Yeah, I would agree. And the price you got listed up there, Reed, is like $930 or so. And whenever I was looking at buying my first rifle, which I told you guys I'm still a newbie, was like the very end of 2012. And the guy that was in front of me in line at Walmart bought the last Colt that they had, and it was a Colt LE6920. I remember that very, very clearly because I was jealous. He got the Colt. I ended up with the Bushmaster. And I think he paid right at $900 and some odd dollars, so we're back at pre-crisis level pricing for that for sure.
The next one we put down was the FN-15. And, I think that from my perspective, the FN-15 is kind of, the industry leader in terms of what should be expected from the rifle. Obviously, FN is taking what they do to the military procurement side of firearms and bringing it to the sporting side of the aisle. And so, while I know that there are some modest differences, these rifles are, for the most part, the standard by which all others are measured. Certainly, everything I've seen has indicated that it's a very well-built rifle, and I haven't heard anything otherwise as they're hitting the shelves and becoming part of the inventories of a lot of the major retailers. But, there's always a possibility that it could be something that doesn't quite live up to the expectations. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. But the FN-15 we found averaged that right at $955, which I think is about anywhere from $100 to $90 less than what I think a lot of people are expecting it to retail for. So I think that's a pretty good, reasonable price. And well in line with Colt's offering, which I think by all accounts a lot of people would treat as another industry standard in quality. But here's one that I guess is the big daddy compared to the standard that Anthony has, but it's the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport. So Anthony, you found this, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, the Sport's really a truly entry-level rifle. It's built with I don't want to say less quality because that's not the case, but it's built with a different purpose in mind.
Right.
It's built with somebody that's not going to go out and shoot every single day. It's just more for the casual shooter kind of thing. And I think that entry-level price of like right around $600 is a great price for somebody to be able to get into the AR-15, get a fully assembled rifle. You can go out and you can shoot. It's going to handle any number of rounds you can put through it on a regular day for the casual shooter. And I think it's a great way for you to get into the sport. And at $600, that price has come down over the past year or so. It's a great deal.
Oh yeah. Well, and at that price point, really, Smith & Wesson is approaching the same price that you would pay for a good pistol.
Yeah, for sure.
The Bushmaster M4 is, I think, one that has traditionally held a pretty visible role in the industry. Obviously there are some people that say that everything that has happened through the Freedom Group and Remington's stewardship has affected it. I have never put my hands on a Bushmaster. I don't own a Bushmaster, so I can't say one way or the other the way they are. Anthony, don't you have a Bushmaster?
Yeah, that's my primary rifle, and again, I'm kind of like you. I don't have a lot of other things to compare to. Well, you've got a lot of things to compare to, except for Bushmaster, and I got Bushmaster, and not a lot of other things to compare to. But it's been a really good rifle for me. I haven't had any issues with it, except for some really cheap steel-cased ammo, where I didn't have quite enough pressure to cycle properly.
Everyone has that problem with that cheap steel ammo.
Yeah, well, that's the only place I've really had any issues. So it's been a really good rifle. It's more accurate than I am. Let's put it that way. So.
Well, the Bushmaster M4 that we found was 811. So, I think that is still a very good price. And really, when you talk about it, I don't believe that it's too far off of where you would expect it to be.
No, actually, that's about. Of course, now I paid Walmart price in late 2012, but I paid was like right like $915. So that's just a few dollars cheaper. That was with tax and everything, or so. So that was it's just a few dollars cheaper.
So I think that these are kind of the bellwether of where we're going in the pricing. My suspicion is that we're still not to the bottom of where these are, because I think that there is still interest. And Anthony, maybe you can find out what the current levels of AR purchasing is right now, while I go into the next kind of part of what I'm seeing in the industry. When we talk about the rifles, these are fully assembled. Go out, buy it in a box, comes with a magazine. No muss, no fuss kind of entries into the AR world. Obviously, we espouse the ability to go out and make your own and build what you want to use, because I think that of virtually any firearm available today, the AR is almost uniquely positioned to be able to give every modern sporting rifle adherent exactly what he wants. And so, of course, rifle components and how they're priced is the central part of that journey to building your own rifle. And I'm seeing the prices coming down. I mean, I think that inventories are going up. You go to Bravo Company, you go to, let's see, who else? I tell you what, I'm just having a great big brain aneurysm here while I'm trying to figure out who else I'm getting pricing emails from. But, Palmetto. It's Palmetto State Armory. I'm always getting their price sheets. They're selling the blemished, they're selling the slightly dinged and dented versions of their lowers, their uppers, fully assembled, stripped, and they're just putting absolutely amazing prices on it. I saw a Bravo Company upper that was a 14-inch mil-spec barrel, 14.5-inch mil-spec barrel with a pinned and welded compensator on it, or flash hider, that was selling for $379. I think a year ago you couldn't find those. 6 months ago you could find them, but they were twice as expensive. Now, I mean, they're giving them away. So, I think that's an example of some of the pricing that's come down. We've gotten questions about the polymer ARs, which we're still not sold on, because they still seem to be trying to put more and more steel in the polymers to try to get them to a place where they're reliable where they want them to be. And when you start building the polymers that way, it increases the price of them. And right now with blemished lowers, I saw a stripped blemished lower that was selling for $49. $49 for the key component of your rifle is an amazing, amazing price. And with all of the other key components just continuing to come down in price, I think that you're easily going to be able to find what you want. Now, stock levels are still increasing. There are some things that go quick, but they're replenished quick. It's the computer age, and I can't tell you how important it is when you find a retailer you really trust to get into their early warning inventory systems that will give you an email. I bought a great deal of stuff during every single moment of scarcity from Bravo Company, because the minute something would come in, I'd get an email, and if I was paying attention and I was quick, I could sign on, I could put it in my cart and get it bought before they were out. And 24 hours later, it was on its way, headed to me. So while investing in a rifle at $1,000 may be something that you don't want to do because it is a big hit all at once, I will tell you that right now, I think that if you're going to do a steady paycheck a month kind of acquisition, now is as good a time as any to start getting your building foundation put together. Go out there and get your components, start saving up and get your build ready. Obviously if things are okay and you can go out there and throw down the money, you're still going to benefit by good prices. And I would encourage you to start looking around if you're seriously contemplating a build. I don't want to be a fearmonger. I don't think that it's helpful. Obviously, we live in an uncertain world, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Certainly, tragedy strikes all the time. So if this is something you want to get involved in because it's something that interests you, I would say get involved. There's no better time than right now. And, certainly we don't know when it's not going to be a good time. And I can't tell you how many times I hear people talking about, the good, the bad, and the ugly of having that desire, that want, or that need at a moment when it is really expensive. So, take that for what it is. It's just the opinions of a couple of guys sitting here, and nobody that can take the microphone away is sitting in the room with us. So,
yeah, Reed, you were asking about some sales information.
Yeah.
Obviously I can't get sales information directly, but there are some reports on the FBI.gov website that deal with background checks.
Right.
And the number of background checks. And something I just found that I thought was rather interesting was a report that gives you the top 10 highest days for background checks from November 30th, 1998 through the present day, well, through May 31st of 2014. So basically through April of last month. The top day, the day that we had the most highest background checks was the day I bought my first rifle. I didn't realize it, but it was December 21st, 2012, Friday, December 21st, 2012. There were 177,170 checks that day. And out of those top 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those days are actually in 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that. And there's only one date in 2013 that actually has the top 10 highest days out of those. So I thought 2013 is this great record year, but actually, 2012, right there, November, December of 2012 is when most of those top 10 days came. With, like I said, at least 4 of those being 2014.
Well, and I think that is another indicator of people seeing the change. They're seeing, kind of the calm on the horizon, and they're getting ready. So, obviously, this is our opinion, but I really do think that the numbers kind of support it. Let's talk about accessories. We've got the core rifle components, and these are the things you're going to need one way or the other. But the accessories are the things that you buy because it fulfills a purpose, it serves a need. Maybe it's an aesthetic, maybe it's ego-driven. I certainly buy a few ego-driven accessories because they're just fun to have on a rifle. But, this is a place where I don't see a whole lot of really aggressive price reduction. There are a lot of companies that are innovating out there. There are a lot of companies that are putting things out on the market and getting to a place where people are accepting their innovations and setting the standard by which other manufacturers are going to have to be measured. And when you've got all of these really great companies putting out these really great products, there's nothing that is going to drive them to drop the prices. Now, I don't think that they're unreasonably priced, but if you're going to get the latest technology in a handguard and a rail in a buttstock, you're going to pay what that innovator is able to go to the market with. And obviously these people put a great deal of energy and effort into trying to figure out what it is we are all going to be interested in buying. And so I can't blame them. I can't fault them. I would encourage them to do it. And I would encourage you that if it's something you want, bite the bullet. Obviously quality and function being important in any decision, but if it's there, I wouldn't let 10 or 15 or 20 bucks be the thing that deters you, because I don't know that you're going to find that thing coming down in price until the next big innovation hits the stores and causes the market to shift away from what it was you liked. So, there is a lot of innovation. There are a lot of things. I think one of the things that we've been contemplating is really kind of getting in depth into the whole key mod side of handguards, because it really has kind of taken a firm foothold in what we're expecting from our, accessories manufacturers. So we may very well put that in the lineup for next week's show. So, certainly these are the things you don't need to make your rifle complete. They are the things that are nice to have or fun to have. So obviously those are the things that we're probably not going to get any real relief as far as pricing goes, but there are a lot of choices. I think one of the big things that everybody has been talking about is ammunition. Ammunition pricing has always been a killer when the incentive to buy everything in sight is, keenly upon us. I think that also draws a lot of people into the market to buy things that they don't need. Obviously there's any number of motivations that do that, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I think about that. Everybody has an opinion, and we're all entitled to them. But Anthony put a link into the show notes about some historical pricing trends.
Yeah, this is it's got a nice little graph. It's only through I think the end of September of last year, so it's not updated and not current, and I couldn't find another updated link for it. But I thought it was really interesting. It does graph from January of 11 through September of 2013, and it shows 223, 5.56. Now, it says 55 grain, 62 grain, brass, full metal jacket, non-match, but my guess is it's really more 55 grain. Looks like 28, 29 cents per round, back around January of 2011. It does show some key points in here of some issues that we knew would drive some pricing up. And the maximum it shows is well over, is to like 71, 72 cents around April of 2013. And then we see a steep decline into May of 13, and then it closes out September around 40 some odd cents around September of 2013.
Well, so let me kind of give you the anecdotal impression of the state of ammunition for the AR. So a year and a half ago, everything started flying off the shelves. Let's see, was it a year and a half ago? No, I guess it was. Yeah, a year and a half ago, wasn't it?
Yep.
So a year and a half ago, things were flying off the shelves. Throughout the best part of 2013, I would tend to say that most people couldn't find anything, and the things they were finding were really high priced.
Or steel cased.
Yeah, steel case and high priced. And I would say probably around December of last year, my local store, which is a Cabela's, I would go in and they had, I think, 4 aisles of ammunition that shrank down to 1 aisle. So before a year and a half ago, 4 aisles. Then a year and a half ago, after everything disappeared, it was 1 aisle. It was everything on, rifle on one side, pistol on the other side, and there wasn't a whole lot of each. But, if you fired a 243 or a 30-06 or a 7mm, you could probably find something to go deer hunting with. Everything else was gone.
Yep.
So then, around December, all of a sudden there's 2 shelves, or 2 aisles. And so they're starting to get stuff back in stock. It shows up, but it starts disappearing fast. And it's the same guys that would come in and see it on the shelf and buy everything they could. And then they'd call up every one of their buddies, and they'd come in and they'd buy everything they could. And it was all going into the same garage. We know it was. We still love you guys. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where it was headed. And then I think really maybe January, February, it would get on the shelf and it would stay. And then all of a sudden March rolls around, and then it's not 2 aisles, it's 3 aisles. Because a lot of the stuff that's coming in isn't going out as fast as it used to. I walked into my Cabela's Father's Day weekend, and there were 4 aisles again. 4 aisles. And I will say that not everything that I shoot was there, but there was a lot there that wasn't there a year before. I mean,
with the one major exception being
357 SIG.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry. I love the caliber. I shoot it in my pistols, and it's nowhere to be found.
That's true, too.
I'm irritated, but that's okay. That's my own issue. So, anyways, right now I walk to my Cabela's, and they have all the ammunition I want. Is it priced the way I want? Well, maybe not. But if I want to go on and buy 150 rounds of, federal ammunition, I can. If I want to go in and buy a bunch of boxes of, kind of higher end 70 grain, 69 grain, 77 grain match stuff, there's some available. I'm going to pay a little bit more, but it's available. It's on the shelf. So what we did for the show is kind of go look at a couple of representations of ammunition that we tend to seek out when we are looking for ammo, and I wanted to kind of give you an example of the pricing we're seeing. So in the 55 grain world, we found the Federal American Eagle. It's the 223. You can buy it in 1,000 round quantities at $345 per 1,000. So you're basically looking at 34 cents for each round, which is a pretty good figure. It's
not bad.
No, it's not as good as we'd like to see it. I'd like to see it around 24 cents a round for brass-cased ammunition. I don't know if we're going to get there. Not for a while. There are some things that are going on that, we can't control, but we'll get there, I think, eventually. At the same 55 grain level, Tula, which is kind of another ubiquitous East European firearms ammunition manufacturer, they've got their 223 1,000 round quantities at 24 cents a round. Now, that's a good price point, but I think a lot of people will tell you that either they're not comfortable with the, the shellacked cases, the steel cases on the Tula. They're not real comfortable with sometimes the bimetal. They don't know if it's corrosive or non-corrosive. There's just some uncertainty. So some people shy away from it. And there are other people that will shoot it all day long because it's cheap and they can get it. So,
whether or not it will feed properly.
Right. That's irrelevant. You can always cycle it again.
Oh, yeah.
34 cents to 24 cents a round for 55 grain. I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Now, the ammunition that I tend to like for my rifles is the heavier 62 grain. And the Federal It's the XM855. They're 62 grain 5.56 ammunition. You can get it for 34 cents a round if you will buy 2,000 of them. Otherwise, you're looking at about 40 cents a round. So, it's a really big investment. Obviously, 40 cents a round is not what I think a lot of people would want to buy. They'd rather go with the 55 grain if that were the choice. But, I think in time they're going to continue to come down. And if they can come down that next 5 cents or so, I think I'll be more comfortable buying them at the smaller quantities. Now, one thing that I found, which I think was an absolutely great deal, but really, I just couldn't figure out how I needed that many more rounds. Steve, our law enforcement officer that lives close to me and is a good friend, sent me a link, and an East European company was manufacturing ammunition to Colt. It was manufacturing it for their specifications, and it was Colt match ammo, 62 grain, full metal jacket, and 500 rounds for $139.99 a case. So that's once again 28 cents a round for 60.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's not the steel case with a varnish. It's steel with a zinc coating. Now, I've never fired that. I don't know anybody that has fired that. I don't know what that would do in your chamber. It has Colt's name on it, and that may be because they stole it. That may be because Colt let them have it. Who knows? I can't tell you. I am not going to speculate. But if Colt let it into the country, I got to think that Colt has a thing or two to say about it, and it must be theirs. So if they're standing behind it, I would say tentatively, then it must be okay to shoot. I mean, at least it's not like putting varnish or shellac or whatever it is on the steel ammo that's going to be left in your chamber. But still, 28 cents a round, I was so very tempted. I was, but I just could not justify it. I couldn't.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, well, if I had a reason to go and shoot 500 rounds, indiscriminately, I might have, but I couldn't even figure out how that was going to happen. So, I think ammo's coming down. Obviously, ammunition is something that is based on a different kind of supply side theory, and I don't know where we're going to head. There are some things in the industry that I'm not really comfortable guessing about because I don't have enough information to give you guys a good opinion on it. But, ammo could continue to come down, and it might stay steady for a while. In any case, that's kind of what my thoughts are on about it. We do have a couple of things that really kind of are trending in the news, and so I'll let Anthony take it from here and kind of tell us what he has found as far as the AR-15 in the news recently.
Yeah, so you guys have probably heard about this. If you hadn't, I'd be kind of surprised. This was a story that I found out about actually on Facebook a while back. I think last week or so, that there's an Illinois Little League team that is selling raffle tickets for an AR-15 rifle, which I thought that's a pretty gutsy move on their part. But they must have some really great support from their community if they're going to be able to get that. And they said that there was when I was reading this story, I found that there was another raffle in Missouri that raised over $7,000 for a cancer foundation. So I thought that was rather interesting. I mean, if those kinds of things are going over well and they're making money in their communities, that really to me shows that you've got some support for the modern sporting rifle in these communities, and that there's interest that's there. That like Reed was talking about, that's going to help more people get into shooting, more people get into our sports and learn how safe and fun things can really be. So I think that's a really positive thing for us. And then a rather interesting one, which of course this church has a rather interesting history if you take a look into it. But in Joplin, Missouri, a church has also raffled off an AR-15 in order to try to increase membership. So that's with a church raffling one off. That's kind of an interesting little tidbit, I thought. What's your take on that one, Reed?
Yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
And I was just going to go ahead and move on from those raffles, and I know you guys have heard about this. This is not really recent, but it's something that's been going on in the past few months. Is that we've seen a lot of bans around the country, and there have been some really innovative things that have been happening. Reed's talked about there's innovation going on in our accessories. There's also innovation going on in the rifle construction as a whole. Those bans that are on New York right now, there's a couple of companies that have been working on designs, and I think there's one that's already out that actually allows an AR-15 or manufacturers a gun very similar to an AR-15. I don't know if they even call it an MSR, but it works. I want to say works around. That's really kind of the wrong word, but it made sure that it adheres to all of those regulations. Things such as I think the stock is not adjustable, so it's a modified stock. There's not a hand grip, so there's no pistol grip on it. So that again, make sure that it adheres to those specific requirements, so it can be sold in New York, but you still get the benefits of having well, not on exactly the same manual of arms, obviously, because the rifle is altered. It's still more familiar than perhaps a different type of rifle would be. You still could take advantage of the platform.
Well, and I think that the reality is that in a free democratic society, there are going to be places where people go the other way. And as long as the industry as a whole is willing to try to figure out how to satisfy the people that didn't go the other way in those jurisdictions, I am all for this. Obviously, it makes it tough because sometimes they put some things in place that you just really can't figure out a way around, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, the last little tidbit that I want to touch on is really just a trend, and this is going back to one of the things we discussed earlier, and I've got a link to this report in the show notes, and it's the total number of NICS background checks, and this goes all the way back to November of 1998. They started a partial in that month. What I thought was really interesting here is we do see a very typical increase from November to December of 2012. There was just barely over 2 million in November, and in 2012 there was almost 2.8 million background checks. Again, remember that doesn't equate 1-to-1. That doesn't mean 2.8 million rifles were sold. That was just the background checks, but there were almost 2.8 million background checks in December of 2012, and then we take a look 1 year ahead to December of 2013, and we're back down to just above 2 million. You think, oh, well, that means gun sales have slowed. And I think that we have to be very careful about that, because that was a really tense time, and that was the time that everybody was really worried about some of our freedoms not being kept for us. And we take a look at January, and January follows that same type of trend. Almost 2.5 million in 2013, and in January of 2014, only just under 1.7 million background checks. So we did see a great decrease there, but then when we move ahead just a little bit, and let's compare March of 2013 to March of 2014, actually March of 2014 was the highest March on record for background checks, 2.48 million, and it was just over 2.2 million in 2013. So we did see another 200,000 plus people more than in March of 2014. And we've seen the same thing in April and May. We're seeing record numbers of background checks, period, since they've started keeping stats on the system. So through this year, we are seeing a continued increase in background checks, which hopefully means we are seeing continued increase in sales.
Right.
Which means we're seeing a growing community, which is great for all of us.
It's interesting that if you look at firearms sales in terms of the NICS background checks, prior to 2004, I think that the pace of purchases is pretty much steady and even. but then after 2004, really from 2005 to 2013, at a minimum, you're averaging 1 million more NICS checks every year, year over year. So it's 9 in 05, 10 in 06, 11 in 07, 12 in 08, almost 13, 14 in 09, 10 holds steady at 14, and then you jump another 2 million from 10 to 11, and then from 11 to 12 it's 3 million, from 16 million to 19 million, and then another 1.5 million from 12 to 13. I mean, those are staggering projections. That increase is not steady at a pretty nominal clip. That's a huge jump year over year.
And it's not over a very short period of time. We have an extended window in which you're seeing this continuing increase of sales as well, or background checks as well.
Right, right. Well, and you know, I've contended that as our soldiers, our armed forces come back home, they're going to bring their comfort level and their training with these weapon systems into their homes, and they're going to teach their family, they're going to teach their friends, they're going to impart a love of the joy of being involved with just shooting for pleasure on those people in their circles, and I think that that can do nothing but increase the popularity and comfort people have with firearms. And
yeah, I agree.
There are so many of those men and women that come back, and the firearm that they are most familiar with is an AR, except the tankers, and then it's like an M1A1 Abrams. But you can't get that at the store.
Not yet.
Not yet. Anyways, you know, all kidding aside, you know, I think that we are really at a good place in the industry. I don't see anything that gives me concern about this hobby. Nothing that certainly is going to change my mind about being involved with it. And you know, I'm encouraged because at every opportunity I see new ways to explore the use of the firearm, new ways to enjoy it, and you know, this is really just encouraging all around.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing growth in our community and being able to have more people to shoot with. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you know, I continue to talk with the man who is most responsible for the sponsorship of this rifle, and he is leading me to believe that I ought to get involved in 3-gun competitions. So I may very well.
Please do, sir. I want to myself. I just got to find one close enough that I can get to on a Saturday.
Well, you know, it's hard for me to feel sorry about being fat and old when he comes and tells me about getting out there and competing, because I think Larry's he's only a couple years older than me, but he's a little older than me. So if he can go out there and do it, I better keep my mouth shut. In any case,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm real excited. I hope you guys have found some of this information encouraging, helpful, or at least fun and entertaining to listen to. But you know, I think it's a good time to be involved in shooting. It's a good time to have a love and appreciation for the MSR, and I would encourage anybody that's on the fence to hop on down and come out and get involved with us.
For sure.
Well, I tell you what, Anthony, why don't you get started here on some feedback, and we'll start seeing what the listeners have to say to us this week.
You bet, Reed. So our first piece of feedback here is from Cody. And Cody says, one comment I have to make. The upper receiver block that you have linked in your show notes does not work on upper billet receivers. I bought the Midwest Industries billet upper, and it was too big and didn't allow the clam to shut. I had to go with a takedown style upper, receiver style. I like the Geisley reaction rod better though.
Well, and you know, Cody, That has been my understanding and my experience with the standard kind of clamshell upper receiver bench block. And so the Geisley reaction rod is what I have, and I really do enjoy it for the purposes of working on that upper receiver. And, geez, with this, Seekins Precision billet upper, yeah, there's no way that that clam's going to close on top of it. So, but yeah, that's why we included that link in the show notes for our episode about what tools you're going to need to build an upper. And so I do hope you did find that, but obviously you know about the Geisley reaction rod because you wouldn't like it better, though, if you didn't. Next is James, who wrote in, Reed, in episode 77, Mike mentioned a 1-4 power scope that he was recommending, but I wasn't able to catch who the manufacturer was or where to buy it. Can you let me know who makes the scope, please? James, I will certainly do that. I'll follow up with him. If you can get to me with where you think in the show you heard that, it'll help me find it out. But otherwise, I'll pick Mike's brain and see what he has to say about that. Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay, so our next piece of feedback comes from Mike. And Mike says, hey guys, you might have covered this in an episode I haven't heard yet. On a flat top AR, where should the front and rear sights be placed? I'm building an AR with a flat top receiver. It has the entire length, so I can put the sights at any point. I'd like to start off with sights so that I can get used to them and save them up for better quality. Iron sights he means there, I believe. I've searched the internet but haven't found much luck finding an answer and hope you guys can help. I think, Reed, that's probably a really good question. From a newbie perspective, I have always heard that what you want is the furthest distance between your front and rear sights so you have the best opportunity to line those up and get the best, most accurate shot. Would that be correct?
That is. And what you're looking for is that concept of a sight radius. If I have two optics points that are, that far apart, if I tilt the rifle, any incremental change in the 2 points is going to be much more telegraphed. It's going to be much more significant than if my 2 points are 2 feet across. And so I'm going to have more precision, more fine control the further my two optic sight or my two iron sights are from each other. So if you look at the A2 upper, you can get an example of where your rear sight's supposed to be. It's supposed to be as far back on your upper receiver as you can get it. And so that's where I put all mine. And I will take that last notch in a flat top and I will secure my rear sight to it so that basically where my sight is coming down is essentially that flat right above your charging handle. On the front sight, obviously you have a couple of questions that clarify where that's going to be. If you have a front sight base, well, your front sight is already there and it is where it needs to be. The question is whether it has the F mark front sight base or not, because if it doesn't, then your sight plane is off and you need to adjust that by getting your front sight post replaced on that not F marked front sight base. Now, you're not likely to find that on a modern 16-inch barrel, but you will find that on some of the military sold replacement, or I guess just carded barrels that were the old A2 barrels that had the A2 uppers connected to them. So I ran into that trouble, I got it fixed, rifle shoots great. But for your purposes, if you're talking about a rifle that does not have a front sight base but does have handguards, then if your handguard's rail, top rail, is on the same plane as your flat top uppers top rail, then you can mount your forward sight on it without any thought. And once again, you want to mount that as far forward as possible so you can give yourself the longest sight radius possible. Now, there are circumstances where you might have standard A2 handguards standard handguards, which are basically just round handguards with the heat shield inside. And you might have a gas block with a rail that's going to be at or around the same place that your front sight base would be if you had a standard AR-15 barrel. And you can put your front sight on that base if that rail section is once again at the same plane as your rear, your upper receiver's flat top. If it's not, well, once again, you're going to have some sighting issues. And I have not come across any easy solutions for that. What I've come across are front sights that are designed for the smaller gas blocks, rail gas blocks, and I've come across gas blocks that are designed with a raised rail so that they're at the same plane. If any of you have come up with a third combination, let me know. So, Mike, I hope that answers the question. I hope I haven't muddied or murked that up for you, but there you go.
And our next piece of feedback comes from Tom J. And he says, hey guys, I have a question about barrel linings. What are the advantages to an SBN, salt bath nitride, versus a chrome lined barrel? I always look forward to the podcast every week. If you have talked about this before, please let me know. I have slept since then. Keep up the good work. Reed, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think episode 67, our coatings extravaganza, didn't we get into a little bit about chrome lined barrels and some of those different coatings?
And we did. And, you know, I think we touched on it also earlier in some of our shows about barrels specifically. You know, I think what it comes down to is the salt bath nitride is a well understood process that has been part of the industrial knowledge base of our metalworking industries for quite some time. I think it has just been recently that we've seen the salt bath nitride adopted into firearms on the scale that we're seeing it now. And, you know, I will say that chrome lining is probably as old as, you know, military barrels going back to the start of the last century. So you're talking turn of the century. It's been a process that has been involved in firearms barrels. I don't know that it's necessarily been always applied to the civilian side of the industry, but I think that the advantages are you're going to see decreased wear because of the protections they provide, and I think that a lot of people will tell you that the linings provide an element of easier maintenance. You're obviously going to be putting a whole lot of gunk down that barrel, and so anything that can help you extend the life and help ease the maintenance burden is going to be something positive. I think between the two, what you're going to find is that a chrome-lined barrel basically is an application of a very nominally small layer of material on the surface of the barrel, the interior surface. And I think that what my understanding is that that is going to potentially take away some of the crispness to your lands and grooves as they're, depending on the way that they're installed, as far as push button or pulled or rifled in any other number of myriad ways. But I think that the chrome lining has the potential to kind of dull that. So the salt bath nitride, while it is once again a coating, I think it is a much smaller profile as far as a molecular thickness. I think it's much, much thinner than chrome. Obviously, we have some very experienced listeners who can inform us of the true difference, but I do believe that it is a much thinner coating. And so I don't think it has as much negative applied to it. I've heard some people talk poorly about the salt bath nitrides. but I get the suspicion that a great deal of the difficulty people see or the complaints people have nothing to do with the process itself. I think it has to do with a particular combination of a steel composition in a barrel and the particular process itself. So I think that if you have a properly matched process with the right steel composition, that you're not going to have some of the worrisome difficulties that I've seen people complain about. Now, of course, there is a lot more to it than what I've said, so I would encourage you to kind of do some of your own homework and get your own comfort level behind it. But I certainly hope that helps, and let us know if we can clarify some of that for you on another show or at a later time.
Oh, great. So our last piece of feedback this week actually comes from our listener, Mark, a new listener, I guess. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I just found your podcast, and it's now in my podcast rotation. I listen to over 15 different ones a week. Welcome, Mark. Hope you enjoy the show. I have not listened to many of your back episodes yet, so please forgive me if you've already covered this. Knowing Reed, we may have. I'm looking to build a 9mm conversion AR using an AR lower. The reason I'm not getting a dedicated lower is due to where I live, upstate New York. Do you have any suggestions for a 9mm conversion block? I see Brownells has two, but would appreciate any feedback you have on them, as well as any words of wisdom for the upper components as well. Thanks for a great show. This all you, Reed.
Well, here's what I would say. As far as the concept, the theory behind converting into a 9mm lower receiver, I think that you're going to find in this day and age, principally the manufacturers who have withstood the test of time, who have sound products. 9mm in an AR is something that's been around, I would say, probably going back into the 80s, maybe even much earlier. But as far back as that, I have been aware of ARs that have been chambered in a 9mm. So I would say that you're 6 one way, half a dozen the other as far as which choice you go for on the dedicated block for the conversion. The issue I think that you're going to really come across is making sure that your upper is truly constructed as a 9mm upper, rather than trying to fit together components for the purposes, because I think you're going to find a very specific need in a 9mm bolt carrier group that is not in any way like what you would expect from a standard AR. Your rifle is going to have a barrel that's specifically chambered to the 9mm, and certainly if somebody hasn't put a lot of thought into that barrel, you're going to diminish some of its ability to be a performing caliber for you. And finally, I think that you're going to have to be aware that your hammer may be your biggest stumbling block. Some of those 9mm conversion uppers are going to have a bolt carrier group that is not going to work as well, or maybe not at all, with a standard AR-15 hammer. So you may need to be very clear in your understanding about whether or not that bolt carrier group is going to have a problem with your hammer, and then be prepared for a purchase. Now, a hammer is a pretty modest investment. I don't think it's going to break the bank of most AR adherents. But here is another thing that I think that you may need to consider. I'm not certain that 9mm as a cartridge is going to be as effective in a 16-inch barrel as it would be in an SBR. And so I think that if you look at most of the submachine guns which historically have chambered the round, you're going to be dealing in rifles or submachine guns that have much smaller barrels, much shorter barrels. You may not find that a 16-inch BATF legal ATF legal barrel is going to give you what you're looking for. So I don't know what New York's view is of SBRs right now, but I'm sure it's not very pretty. In any case, if you're comfortable with not having an SBR and it being a 9mm, and you've been able to find a mate that will get you to that caliber with the least amount of hassle, I would say that you're good to trust anything that Brownell sells. And frankly, with the Brownell's guarantee, if you don't like the one, you can send it back and try the other. So I hope that helps. If you would, please let me know what you think about that 9mm and an AR. So I'm really kind of interested to see what people are saying about it now. But Mark, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for chiming in. And I wanted to kind of let people know before we get into our outro exactly what's going on with our contest.
Yes.
So we're working on getting the website updated with a page with the details about the giveaway. And without going further into that, let's start with what those details are. You can enter the AR-15 giveaway 3 ways. That means that every time you go to one of these different sources, you will get 1 new entry into the contest. But
For a
only
maximum of 3.
Yes. So you start out by getting on the Firearms Radio Network mailing list by going to ar15podcast.com/winner and joining the mailing list. The next thing you can do is go to iTunes and leave written feedback. Now I want to clarify, and I want to encourage you to go back and change what has happened if you didn't do it right. But when you go to iTunes, you cannot just give it 5 stars and go away. That does not give us any information about you. So if you want to have your name pulled out of our mysterious tumbler of name drawing, you need to make sure that you give us written feedback so that we will have that name for our system. So that's just the one very important distinction between giving us any number of stars you feel is appropriate or giving us those stars and actually leaving written feedback. The written feedback is the important part. If you haven't left written feedback, we still don't know who you are and you will not be able to win. So I encourage you to go back and redo your feedback to get into the podcast drawing if you have not already done so. So, the final way is to, once again, leaving written feedback, go out to the Stitcher website and leave us feedback on Stitcher's review system. So, those 3 ways will net you a total of 3 entries for a chance to win the AR-15 that we are building on the show. So, I think that pretty much clarifies the points I wanted to make. Anthony, anything on your desk?
Well, I just wanted to thank all the people that have gone out and given us some wonderful feedback on iTunes. I was just scrolling through, and there's quite a bit. So you guys are doing really great for us. So we really like to get that feedback. And you know, when you go out there, yes, you're just making an entry for the contest. A lot of you are. Or you can go back in and edit, like Reed said, if you have a previous entry. But please do give us some constructive feedback. We always want to get better, so make sure you help us out any way you can. Anything you'd like to hear or see us do. When Reed's putting together his videos, if there's some specific portion of the build that you want to see some additional detail on, he'll probably cover it anyway, knowing Reed, but go ahead and point that out for us so we can make sure we cover everything possible that our listeners really want to get. That's really what we're here for, is trying to give you as much information as possible on these new builds.
And also, I wanted to just kind of reach out and let Charles and JC know that we do appreciate your feedback. It is what helps us get better. Keep it up. We like to hear from you. And we do hope we're fixing the problems. So, with that, let's go ahead and end the show today.
All right, guys. As Reed mentioned, we do have a giveaway going on. I'm going to go over those one more time for you. 3 different ways that you can enter. All 3 count as an entry for you, and you can get up to 3 entries. Go to ar15podcast.com/winner. Join the FRN mailing list. Go to iTunes or Stitcher. Those are our other 2 ways, and leave a written feedback review. Make sure you do write something for us. Again, please make it constructive. And that will get you entered into that giveaway to win that Brownells-sponsored AR-15 custom build that Reed is putting together. You can also send us any questions or comments, as many of you do, and we encourage you to do so, by sending an email to feedback@ar15podcast.com. You can send us a recorded voicemail by using the SpeakPipe plugin on the right-hand side of the AR-15 podcast website. You can also subscribe and listen to us for free if you're seeing us on YouTube or somewhere at firearmsradio.tv/iTunes, and you can get all the podcast information there. As we mentioned, please leave us an iTunes review. That does count as an entry if you do an update, and also it really helps us to give us feedback. If you listen to us on the Stitcher app, again, give us a review there, and that gives you another entry to win the rifle. And then we have our Flickr page. Please leave us pictures of your rifle or of you using your rifle or videos at flickr.com/groups/blackrifle. You can follow us on Google Plus and watch us live, like we're doing right now, at firearmsradio.tv/plus. You can also check out our YouTube page and watch us live there as well, youtube.com/firearmsradio. If you find us on Facebook, we do try to post when we're posting our videos live, which we record on Monday evenings, at facebook.com/firearmsradio. Please like us on Facebook, guys. There's all kinds of wonderful stuff on Facebook, not only our show, but all the shows on the network post there, so you can get some really great firearms information. And you can check out all those other podcasts either on Facebook or just at firearmsradio.tv. And please, Brownells has been so wonderful to us so that we can pass on that wonderful generosity directly to all of our listeners. Make sure you listen to us and use our Brownells affiliate link to get all of your AR-15 parts. AR15podcast.com/parts for all of your AR-15 parts. Brownells has wonderful stuff for you guys. And lastly, everybody goes to Amazon. I don't know anybody that doesn't. So please, if you'd like to help us out just a teeny tiny bit, go to AR15podcast.com first, or firearmsradio.tv or any of the Firearms Radio websites, and click on the Amazon affiliate link. And that will give us a few cents every time you decide to make a purchase on Amazon. So that really helps us out. We appreciate it for everybody that does do that. And that is our outro.
Well, and I just wanted to bring this up, but I didn't want to slow your roll there, Anthony. In the process of tracking down the SpeakPipe plugin manager. We don't know who he is, but we've initiated a Freedom of Information request for Jake so that we can find out what the deal is. So we may find hundreds of feedbacks. We may find that you completely ignore us every week. We beg you to leave SpeakPipe feedback, but soon, very soon, we will unveil what is in that hidden directory.
Yep.
So,
and keep in mind, Jake is out until July 1st. He's taking a little mini vacation, so if it is Jake, we may be July 4th. We may unveil it that week. The week after July 4th is a big surprise, or we may have nothing to unveil whatsoever. So
there's always that possibility. And I don't think that a month qualifies as a mini vacation. I think that's a European vacation.
Yeah.
That's how he went on holiday.
I love it.
You go for a 2-week vacation. If you're European, you go on holiday for a month.
Awesome.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to us. We appreciate each and every one of you. We enjoy hearing from you immensely. And this is a community. We want you to write in and tell us about the good, the bad, the ugly, so we can pass it on to everybody else who listens to the show, so they will be better informed and we can all enjoy our black rifles in a better environment than we did the day before.
Fabulous. Well said, sir.
All right. Good night.
Good.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.